All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Easter. Guess we'll get going. It's 7:01, so let me run through everything, and then we'll get into some of the size up. Hope everyone's doing well under this fun quarantine. Excuse me. So we'll go for like hour 15, hour and a half this morning. Get everyone out of here in time to quarantine themselves for the rest of the day. Or do it any Easter stuff you guys have going on. So I'll start with going through the app. For those of you that haven't done this before, I have everyone muted right now. You can unmute yourself if you want to talk. You're more than welcome to. The only thing I will say is if there's any background noise, everyone else will hear it as well. So if you have any background noise, just make sure your side's muted, and then it won't. Yeah, everyone will hear it. So good or bad. So thank you all for joining us this morning. That's that. There's also a raised hand if you want to do that. We don't have a ton of guys, so you should be able to just unmute yourself and start talking if you have a question or a comment or anything like that. The other thing is there's the chat window. So you guys, if you want to send me a question or say something without everyone seeing it, you can send a message just to the host. Just make sure that when you're sending it, you send it to just the host and not everyone, otherwise everyone will see it. But that's a great way to kind of ask a question without asking a question out loud or anything. Even if it's not something you care about, everyone hearing, just it's a good way to kind of address something on the side there. And then I can address it to everyone. So that's about that with the app. It seems pretty easy for everyone to use, technologically savvy or not. So I'll kind of show you what we're going to go through is a bunch of different size ups. We can get into some tactics if you want. We have a variety of different buildings, fire locations, smoke locations, all of that stuff. We'll point out, it's been very good to get participation from everyone, whether it be, the rural area, the suburban area, the urban area. Everyone has something to offer. And then when we have gotten into tactics, we've actually agreed more than we've disagreed. And so that's been good. So we'll probably get into that a little bit as well. So the software that we're using, Fire Studio 6, one of the reasons I'm doing these classes is obviously during, the quarantine time. People are bored. People are looking to do stuff. We've had all of our classes canceled, so this is a good option to kind of do something remote. I did buy this program in hopes of bringing it out in the fall as this kind of thing. Obviously, that got ramped up a little bit with this. I wasn't just going to sit on it and develop it. So there are some, things that maybe that could do better. And at the end, I'll have a survey for you. So I'd love for you guys to take that and let me know what I could do better. But so far, the feedback's been pretty good. We're really just scratching the surface of what this program can do as well. There's a lot more, both with simultaneous, meaning an interior crew reporting back to the incident commander. Also, everything today is one moment in time, whereas this program also can expand over time, meaning in 5 minutes, it won't look like this. It will look as it expands. So it'll be pretty cool. And again, we practice with everything else. Why shouldn't we practice with size ups as well? So that's kind of where this idea came from. Like I said, we have a lot of different scenarios. We got 22 people on here now. So we can spend, as much or as little time on each as we want. And we'll just kind of go through it. Let's see what else. So that's about it. So we'll jump right into this. Like I said, if anyone has any questions, let me know. Either type them or unmute yourself and talk. The more the merrier. So everyone at this point should see the screen with the fire on it. Is that correct? You can just give me a thumbs up. Mescola, I'm going for you. All right, cool. I just see you're one of the few with the camera. So what we're going here I'll just give, if I pulled up to this, my size up would be, or my first in would be somewhere around the, engine one on scene with a 2-story colonial attached garage on the B side, heavy fire from the garage. So for me, a first in is, a lot of people like to use the term painting a picture. I despise that term for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm a shitty painter. Number two, I think painting takes a long time to do. I think it's very detail oriented. And I don't think that's what a first in is. I think a first in is something that is quick to the point. I think of it more as like a stick figure drawing, um, where you just, there's the head and there's the body. The person might be fat, the person might be skinny. That's not the point. The point is there's a person. What I'm going for with a first in is, there's a house here and it's on fire, and it's on the, it's from the garage. I'm not saying how many square feet's burning. I'm not, getting into detail stuff like that. What do I see quick from the rig? Some people like to give a first in from out of the rig. That's fine too. But it's quick and to the point, down and dirty. I think the couple mistakes I see with first ins is giving wrong information. And we've seen that over the last couple of weeks, where guys will call a building the wrong thing, meaning they'll call like a raised ranch a ranch, or a ranch a raised ranch, vice versa. I think that's a pretty critical error. And so I'd rather you err on the side of, if you're not sure, just a 2-story wood frame or a 2-story private dwelling. I know in the city we usually differentiate between a peaked roof and a flat roof. That's probably not necessary in a majority of the areas where most private dwellings are peaked roofs. But quick, down and dirty. Then your size up, when you're doing your actual walk around, you can add on to it. You can give additional information. So if I get to the rear, and in this case, and let's say this was a basement fire and not a garage fire, I could get to the rear, realize there's a walkout basement. That's something that you would want to put over the radio. In this case, probably not concerned about a walkout basement, so that's not something I'm necessarily going to update people with. If this was fire in the rear and I got to the rear and it was auto extending to the second floor, that's something that I would put in my follow-up size up. If I pulled up here and I had fire on the first floor extending to the second floor, then maybe that's something I would put in my initial first in. But I think just the first in, some people get way too off the walls, way too intense with it, try to give a story. And not only does it sound like shit usually, but it usually ends up giving wrong information. So quick, straight to the point. I'd rather you give less information than wrong information. So my kind of 4 points is height, size up, location of fire, and additional resources. So that kind of works fairly well. And it kind of, gets you going into letting guys know what you have. So I'll open it up. Does anyone have any comments on that? Agree, disagree? All right. So what I'll do is I'll go the split view here, and we'll just kind of go through all 4 sides. This is the A side, B side, C side, this kind of CD corner here. So an attached garage fire, what I'm kind of looking for, I think regardless of what staffing you have, I think in an attached garage fire, the most important aspect is what's going on in between the garage and the house. Is that door open or closed? And unless you have less than 3 guys on scene, and maybe even if you have 2, but you have more coming, I think that's going to dictate what your tactics are for the most part. And so we'll go through a couple things I see here. Obviously we have heavy fire from the garage. That's not debatable from anyone here. All right. And that's, important to know. The door's open and there's a car here. So if no one's greeting me at the front door, I'm, unless I'm in, even if I'm in rural area where people leave their stuff open, I think that's going to be a major point of possibly that there's someone inside here. Okay. And these are fires that we see all over the place, whether it be, I'm going through Westport, Newtown, Norwalk, Stanford, anywhere. This is a very common fire. Cars catch on fire all the time, and if they're in garages or near garages, they're going to spread pretty quickly. So I think the first thing to determine if you're the first due officer is figure out, is that door between the garage and the house open. Now, a couple of things. By code, obviously that garage is supposed to be enclosed with some sort of fire resistive, meaning just like maybe I think double 5/8 sheetrock or something like that, and some sort of a fireproof door. As it's been pointed out by a couple of contractors in the last few classes, a lot of people change that door to make it look prettier, and so it may simply be a regular hollow core door. It also may be left open. It may have burned through. And so I think that as a first due officer, after doing your 360 and making sure, that this maybe didn't start in the basement and extend somehow or whatever, I think your first size up point is to figure out what's going on with that door. So does anyone want to chime in on a couple ways to do that, or should I just preach?
You could, there's whether or not you attack the fire directly or go interior, you need to know, like you said, you need to know what that interior door is doing.
Yeah.
And if there is nobody greeting you, the best way to be would put the line between the fire and the potential victims. And if you could control that door, you could always do a quick search if you're first in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. And so you guys are coming from rigs of 2 and 3 guys, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
So, yeah. So even, let's just say worst case scenario, you show up with 2 guys. I'd probably be having my chauffeur stretch that line while my officer, or I guess it's a fireman, does the walk around. And by the time he gets back to the front, even if you positioned, the line right here, that gives you the option of either stretching around, putting it into the window, or stretching into the front door. My feeling is that the best thing to do at that point after your 360, and I'm going with this scenario, and that's one of the nice things about this program, is I'm going with this scenario specifically. I'm not necessarily saying on all attached garages. I'm going by what I see here. With the smoke coming out of here, I think the first thing I would do is force entry, or get this front door open and take a peek into this first floor, even just from the doorway here. That's going to tell you a lot, especially with the cameras that we have. If you have fairly good visibility in here and this is a light gray smoke, probably that door is closed or at least holding. This type of smoke condition from the exterior leads me to believe that when I get that door opened, I'm going to be greeted with a little bit more of a smoke condition, probably a little bit more turbulent, maybe blacker smoke, leading me to believe that that door is probably open or burned through at this time. And so that changes my game. Really, regardless of victims or not, that changes the game of fire attack. But certainly, if you're thinking that there might be victims in there, that changes everything. And so my tactics would then generally steer towards, I'm gonna guess that hopefully most departments would have 4 guys on scene at that point, whether it be volunteer or career. 4 or 5 guys, you can get that line in there to that door, knock back this fire. Even if you're not going to advance it in there and extinguish all of it, at least knock back the fire. And my hope is that, if, especially this being daytime, a little bit different than nighttime, if a victim was attempting to exit and was overcome by smoke in this front foyer area because that door was left open, then the chances of us finding them as we stretch that line into the garage are going to be very high. And that would be my hope. And so don't get caught into, well, we don't have enough guys to do a search. Even a search 6 feet off the line, which is the height of one of us, plus, what you can reach, that's going to give you a fairly good amount of reach, especially if victims are trying to exit. And that's overall why a lot of times we want to bring that line into the main point of egress, because if they're coming out and we're coming in, the hope is that if they went down, we will find them on our way in. Okay. Now you pull up with this with 1 guy in the afternoon, and that's a reality for some, I don't think that there's any argument that you have to get some water on this fire. And so, even if you pull around onto the B side and put a deck gun into here, that's going to be better than nothing. Um, but that would not be, in this case, that would not be my primary scenario of what I would like to do. And there are times today where we'll get into it, and that is a primary means would be getting a deck gun into the window, because I think that would be the quickest way to get water on the fire, or a 2.5 or whatever. But in this case, I would really, if life safety is our primary concern, I would really stress getting a line into that front door and protecting potential victims in this house. All right. Other scenarios of this, and I've seen where you have fire actually greeting you at the front door, and just in that case, you really have to get a line here and start pushing it back, or anybody in this first floor is going to get toasted. And the fire, even if you come in this way and start getting water on the fire is going to get up those stairs and into the second floor, and that's obviously not what we want. So, does anyone else, as you're looking through this, does anyone else see anything here that kind of speaks to them, or anything like that anyone wants to comment on? Okay. Let's see. So we'll move on to the next one then. All right, this is a good one. We didn't do this one the other night, but we'll do it today. So this is a house in Norwich, or not a house, an industrial in Norwich. So a size up for this would be, I would probably, dimensions or something. I've heard people try to say over the radio quickly. I've done it myself and then looked later at what the dimensions actually are and been nowhere near close. So I would, unless you're sure or you have a really good eye for feet, I would generally stay away from dimensions in your first in, just because you don't want to say, something completely wrong, and then that changes that mode for everyone else coming in. So in this, I would say something along the lines of a 2-bay industrial garage, heavy smoke showing from the A side, 1 story, something simple like that. I think that tells the story, industrial. The number of bays I think are good, even though this is a little bit wider, meaning that you could get 4 bays in here. I would probably stick to the number of bays. Kind of tells you, hopefully, maybe how many vehicles might be in there. If this was obvious what it was, you might say what type of facility it is. I don't know, in this case, I know because I was in there, but a support facility could mean a lot of things. But if it was like, Burns Construction or something like that, that might not be a bad idea. But what do we, what kind of smoke are we seeing here? What could possibly be burning in here? Vehicles is a big one, and really any sort of hazmat. And so this is, we're not going to spend too much time on this because I don't think that there's a huge life hazard here, especially if the bay is open. I would hope that there's someone greeting us here saying, this is what's on fire. If there's not, again, I still doubt that we are going in and doing a full primary search ahead of the hose line, that. So I think that our main tactics would be to get a line up to this door and operate it into whatever's on fire, get this door cut open, maybe get these doors forced and make sure that they don't go to office areas that need to be searched. The 360 is going to be tough here. It's fenced off, so you'd have to get to the rear, which I don't have. So you'd actually have to drive around to the rear. And so that's definitely going to, delay getting into this. So I think your primary tactics here, where we may talk about doing a search without a line, I don't think that's here. I think you're better off getting that fire knocked down and getting these forced open. Even if you get here, get nice and low, you might be able to see across the camera. You might be able to see if there's a victim laying down, then you have to make a search. But for most most departments, I don't think that you're, going in here without a line or anything like that initially. And I think priority has to be to getting this garage door open and getting good position for the truck so that they can get some master streams into here and finding out what's going on in the rear so you can maybe set up master streams in there as well. What do you guys think? Anything different?
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
This is Jeff over at
Yep.
Holyville. Hey, go to the Charlie side again. They looked like 2 stories from the back. So
Yeah.
it looks like we got a basement going on or something down there.
Yeah, it actually is just a slab, but yeah, you have to get to the rear. But my point with this is, as a first due officer, you really can't get to the rear unless you're going to get in your car and drive around the back. And that goes into, you're probably not going to do that. You're not going to pull up with the engine and say, all right, now I want to get at 360. And so that's going to be something that you have to radio to, next arriving units and say, hey, I need, it may not be an engine. It may be the chief. Hey, car 2, on your arrival, can you check out the rear? We have 0 access. And that's, so the way that this would probably go is that if I was engine 1, I would engine 1 on scene of a 1-story, 2-bay industrial garage, heavy smoke showing from the A side. And then as I get out and I stretch my line, and as the officer, I see this. And then as the officer, I see this. And then, what I would probably do at that point, engine 1 to dispatch or engine 1 to car 2, be advised, we have no access to the rear for a 360, so let him know if he's not on scene yet. Maybe you want to drive around to the rear or assign someone else to the rear, even if they're not going to stay there for the whole time initially, just to at least get an idea. Like you said, make sure it's not blowing out of a walkout, garage basement in the rear. So,
right.
Because absolutely, you're going to see many times tonight where if we don't get to the rear, it's going to be a completely different story than if we had. So yeah, it's definitely going to be important to, get eyes on what's going on in the back, without a doubt.
Okay.
Anyone else want to touch on anything there? We'll go to the next one, which is, that's a good one. All right. So here we have my size up here would be a 1-story ranch with a 2-story addition on the D side, heavy fire from the 2nd floor of the addition. To me, this is a fairly obvious ranch style home that they are adding a 2nd story on the D side. I've heard someone say this is a 2.5 story. Maybe if that's in your area, that's okay. I think that the majority of the fire service would not call this a 2.5 story. And so just be wary. And so when people say things that don't sound right to me in these classes, I just ask for clarification, because, it may be that in your area you have sayings, or you call certain buildings something. So taxpayers is going to be something that we'll see later that I would personally not call a taxpayer, but it seems like the majority of departments would. And so that's fine. As long as everyone that you're talking to on the radio knows what you're going into, that's fine. You don't care about the buff from 50 miles away listening up and saying, that's not a taxpayer. No, as long as the guys that you're working with know what you're talking about, that's good. Now, a lot of people mentioned the propane tanks. To me, that's not a first in report unless fire's blowing out of these windows into the propane tanks. All right. Right now, these propane tanks mean absolutely nothing to me as a first due arriving officer. Again, if fire's blowing out of this window and the propane tank's sitting here, yeah, absolutely, I'm mentioning the propane tanks. But to me, these are not involved in fire right now. From my rig, there's no hazard with them. That's something that subsequent arriving officers and chiefs have to deal with. To me, as a first due engine officer, I'm not saying that they're not important, but it's just not something that I feel like I need to, mention over the radio. Things that you may or may not see from the rig that you would definitely want to see on your size up. The fact that the windows still have the stickers on them. And as you do your 360, that there's obvious work going on. The most obvious being the stairwell without railings, windows with the stickers on still, all the machinery. What that tells me is obviously that it's under construction. Likelihood of it being occupied is low, but obviously not, zero. But more importantly, this gets into firefighter safety. What's going on when a building is under construction?
Yeah, fast spread due to potential walls being open,
Absolutely.
void still there,
Yeah.
storage of possible flammable materials and liquids.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is we don't know, but worst case scenario, there's zero sheetrock, there's zero protection of the framing on there. And so I would expect this to take off extremely quick. And because it's a new construction addition, truss is certainly not out of the question, both of the floors and roof. So while this area, I feel fairly confident operating on a roof here, up here, probably not going to be as confident. Now, the good news is that the fire is on the second floor. By all evidence, the first floor looks fairly clear. So from a tactics standpoint, after I do my 360 and realize we have a good fire on the second floor, I would have probably my crew stretch an 1 3/4 to the interior to attack this. And I, as an officer, because this area is extremely probably non-hazardous, not even an IDLH because everything's venting, I'm going to get a quick primary search done of that first floor by myself. And I say by myself, you're probably not even going to need to be on air for this first floor. It's probably clear as day with heavy fire venting over you. But I want to make sure no one's in this first floor unaware of what's going on up there. And as soon as that happens, again, if a stairway is coming up here, probably the bottom part of that stairway is going to be fairly clear, and we're going to be able to operate safely, mostly even from that stairwell, just using the reach of the line to put a majority of this fire out, depending on what the layout is. But I don't, that's my feeling. Even if I only had 4 guys, I think that's a fairly, I'm not putting me personally, I'm not putting guys up on this roof to cut. I'm going to guess that it's truss. I'm also going to guess that it is well involved at this point and may have, fire directly impinging on the roof supports, even if it's not truss. So I'm going to lean towards just kind of getting a line up there and starting to work its way around, vent if we have to. But really, this is just going to depend on how advanced the fire is going against those structural members up there. So what do you guys think? Any agree, disagree?
Yeah, I agree. One thing other than firefighter safety, new construction, just keep in mind, is probably might not be any handrails, or there could be holes in the floor that they're doing work and stuff like that normally you wouldn't have. So
absolutely, right there. And that's why I would try to get as much fire knocked down from the stairwell as possible and try to avoid having to go up onto that second floor until everything's starting to knock down. So someone's mentioned on here about power lines, calling Eversource. I don't know if this was this one or the last one, so I apologize. So my feeling on utilities, and I'll just give this to you now, is, and I feel fairly strongly on this. I realize a lot aren't necessarily going to, but I think the incident commander has a lot going on, especially if it's a newer incident commander. And I think it's unfair in general to ask an incident commander to call everyone that he needs individually. And what I mean by that is I think that what I've seen work well, and it worked in Trumbull and it works in Monroe extremely well, both towns, is that when you say, when you go with like a working structure fire protocol or working fire, having things automatically happen, meaning a RIT coming automatically, utility coming automatically, EMS coming automatically, station coverage coming automatically. rather than making the incident commander call every single resource that he needs individually, when in reality we need them at every fire that we're going to. Now, if you have an immediate need for like an Eversource or something, by all means update them and say this is a priority because of, or if you need additional ambulances, update them and say we need additional ambulances because of. But if there's something that you're calling for every single time, why not just make it automatic? So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, guys, but I think to me it's a home run to be able to just say one thing and have it automatically happen from a dispatch standpoint. So anyone else want to touch on these at all? All right, so we'll go split up. All right, next one's good also. All right, so my first in here would be a one-story ranch. Smoke from the A side. Appears we have heavy fire from the rear. This is one where I don't get into location of floor because I don't see it. And so some people I've heard first in saying I have heavy fire from the first floor in the rear. I don't see that. I see heavy fire in the rear. I do not see heavy fire from the first floor because I can't see the rear. You could even make the argument, this could be anything burning in the rear, just appearing it be in the front. I would assume it's not because I have smoke from the eaves here. But if I pulled up and the entire house in the front was clear and I just had that in the rear, then it could definitely be fire, meaning brush or a machine or a car, whatever the case may be. Obviously, this is one where if we don't perform a 360, we're going to miss something. And in this case, we have heavy fire in the rear. All right, nothing going on the D side. These are the two. So this is the BC corner, and this is the C side, and that's the B side. So a little bit more than just fire coming out of a window here. This window here is approximately the size of that window, and so this is a fair bit amount of fire here, obviously. So what I'm trying to show here is that the fire is not just coming out of the window, but it's actually working its way up the outside of the building, burning the vinyl siding and all that. So other than life safety from a fire travel standpoint, to me, our biggest hazard here is not interior extension, meaning coming across the basement and up. Even here, there's smoke, there's not fire. So my biggest hazard, I believe, is auto exposing. Now, let me just quickly define that. Auto exposure would be extension from floor to floor or horizontally via the exterior of the building, whereas extension would be spreading through the building but via the interior. And so in this case, auto exposure, meaning that this fire is spreading from the basement to the first floor and the attic, but via the exterior and not the interior. Okay. Now it may spread through the interior as well, 100%, but my initial concern is the exterior. And so for that reason, as I go through this over and over, because this is the third time I've done this one, I'm still leaning towards my first line coming around here and washing down this exterior initially. Couple of reasons. Number one, I think, especially if I have like 2 guys on the rig, 3 guys, 4 guys on the rig, and no other rigs coming for a few minutes, I could do a good job stretching this line interior. Let's be real. Once we get inside, it's probably going to be a fairly heavy smoke condition on this first floor. While this is a ranch, it doesn't necessarily look like a normal layout of a ranch. And so finding those basement stairs may be fairly problematic. By the time I find them, push down, find the fire at that point could have failed this window and gotten into the first floor and almost coming up behind me. Number 2, the fire could get up into the attic via the soffits or the gable end. and then start working its way across there. And so this is one where I would probably come here, and even before, so normally if I had fire venting out of that window there, just a regular vent out the window fire, I would probably lean towards skipping it, coming around the rear, getting into these doors, and attacking it, conventionally in here, out the window in this way and whatnot. In this case, prior to entering that rear, I am probably going to take the time to douche down this exterior and try to prevent any interior, auto exposure into this window or the soffits. I would try to be careful not to put the line onto that window because I would probably break the glass. But certainly get it onto this vinyl siding, let it rain down, knock down as much of that fire as I can, and then head towards the rear in and put it out. Very rapidly, though, this is not a one-line fire. And so, if you don't have enough help coming, you very quickly after that, I need to get a second line into that front door to come check for extension here, check for extension in the attic, check for extension here, and obviously back up that line if necessary as well. So the reality is probably at best case a 2-line fire, but most likely 3 or 4 lines. 1 line to that rear that we said, 1 line into this first floor. If it gets into the attic, you're going to need another line up there. And then, you always want to have another line for this main body down here in case that first line has any issues with it. So this is going to be a manpower intensive fire. So if you don't have enough resources coming, get them coming. In terms of, the other reason I don't like going in the front door here, other than not being able to find the stairs, and you can tell me, listen, I know where the stairs should be, but just looking at this layout, how the garage is kind of tucked in here, I realize it looks like a ranch, but just something doesn't look normal to me. And that doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It just means that I'm worried that I go in here and it's zero visibility and I'm not able to find the stairs. And then I am, let's be real, a monkey fucking a football on the first floor, getting myself wrapped around myself, not being able to find the fire. And worst part, operating over an uncontrolled fire at that point. So I'm much more likely, even if I show up with 30 guys, my first line is probably going around that side and simultaneously a second line going into that front door. My curveball for this one is the mother shows up, you show up, the mother says, my kid is sleeping and really it doesn't matter, but we'll go with this bedroom here, okay? But even if it's this bedroom, same thing. How does that change your tactics? Well, obviously, if you show up and this is where, I'll address that comment in a minute. But if you show up and you have someone meeting you there saying my kid's in there, how does that change it? Well, if you got 4 guys on scene, 3 guys, 2 guys, I don't know. I think, listen, I'm as, I think, aggressive as you can get. I'm very, very hesitant of entering and doing a search on that first floor without a hose line being stretched over here. So what I would probably do, we'll go through it. If I had 2 guys, I would probably help my chauffeur stretch a line here, let him charge it, let my chauffeur operate this, and then I would go in and do a search by myself. That's considered a known life hazard, so you don't need 2 in, 2 out. And that's worst case scenario. 3 guys, I would probably go do a search by myself, have my rider stretch a line and operate by himself. 4 guys, I don't know if I would take the second guy with me and do a search and have the 2 guys stretch a line, or the 1 guy stretch a line and the second guy come with me and do a search or whatever. But again, this is not one where if the bedroom was on the other side of the house, then that's fine. I'll do a search without getting a hose line in operation. I think we're putting our guys at extreme, extreme risk if we don't get some sort of water on this fire somehow, okay? Even if we're not knocking the main body of fire down. In this case, what I'm saying here is we have to get this part of the fire knocked down so that it doesn't fail this window, come in on us while we're doing a search. and obviously kill the victim as well. So, a known life hazard definitely, to me, really changes the name of the game here. And so that's something that I would be very cognizant of, how I would distribute my personnel at that point. Also, if the mother reaches you saying that my kid's in there, that's something that you really can't ignore ignore is the wrong term, that you can't be silent on. You've got to get on the radio and update incoming units of that. And let's be real, if you have 2 or 3 on the rig, by the time that rig gets there, you're probably not going to be outside being able to communicate with them. So letting them know what your plan is, so that when they get on scene, they have an idea of how you allocated your resources. So something like that would be, if I had 3 guys on the rig, engine 1 to dispatch, be advised we have confirmed entrapment. We're going to be stretching a line and doing a primary search interior. Or, maybe you even get more specific. We're going to have, engine 1 to dispatch or engine 1 to car 2. We have confirmed entrapment. We're going to have a line on the B side, and I'm going to be inside doing a search. And so that way, if the incident commander gets there, or the chief gets there at that point, he has an idea of what tactics you've taken, because obviously the part of, face-to-face, change of command at that point is going out the window if you're inside doing a search. But again, I want to kind of go back, because I don't want anyone to take me out of context. This is a known life hazard. Okay. And a known life hazard would be, you can see someone, you can hear someone, or you have reports from someone credible on scene. So this isn't the neighbor coming up and saying, I haven't seen them in a couple of days. This isn't the neighbor coming up and saying, I think they got back from vacation last night. This is the mother coming out and saying, my kid is sleeping in that bedroom, or my kid is taking a nap in that bedroom, or whatever. Okay. This isn't showing up at 2 a.m. and no one greeting you at the house and assuming someone's inside there. Okay. Known life hazard, 2 in, 2 out can be, 2 in, 2 out does not need to be on the table. Okay. So just keep that in mind. I don't want anyone posting on the internet that Dan's going in by himself and, whatever, just for fun. Okay. This is like someone coming saying my kid's in there with this type of fire and only 2-3 guys on the rig is a very, very bad scenario. Anyone want to comment on that? I'm trying to hit all levels of staffing here, and with one rig, because a lot of places, even a Westport, engine 6 gets there, they're by themselves for a few minutes. So anyone want to touch
I agree with you, Dan. Put the fire out. First thing you got to do is get water on the fire, and everything gets better anyway. So, and if there's 2 of you, like you said, one puts water on the fire, the other one goes in and searches. That's it. And if it's 2 guys and it's not confirmed, then get water on the fire, and then your next engine coming in, they got to start a search right away.
Yeah, I'm not. If
you don't know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
If it's not confirmed, I'm not going in to do a search by myself. My priority is getting water on that fire. My feeling, I'll take your cliche of you put water on the fire, everything gets better. I think everything gets better for us 100%. I think very few victims, civilians, die from burns. I think the majority of them die from smoke, carbon monoxide, gases. And so, my feeling there is, yes, I think the fire gets better, and I think we reduce any port of extension or auto exposure. But people are only going to live if we get them out of that building. We can put all the fire out that we want. If carbon monoxide and smoke is staying in that bedroom at 5, 6, 7, 800 parts per million, they're still going to die. And so we got to if we have a confirmed entrapment, putting out that fire is going to make things a lot better for our searchers, 100%, a lot safer for us. And we need to make it safer for us so that we can make it safer to anyone else. I just think, and I'm not going after you here, Jeff, I think in the industry in general, a lot of people like to think when you put that fire out, everything gets better for civilians. everything doesn't get better for those civilians until we get them out of the structure and into the hands of EMS care. Okay.
Well, agreed with that, but you know, if it's not confirmed, then you know you're not going in right away.
No, I agree.
You want to get them out, and you want to first put the fire out, and then your next, as soon as you got water on that, the next engine that comes in, as soon as you got 2 guys, they're going in to do a search. They can bring a line in or whatever they want, but you got to search first.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, no, if it's not confirmed, I think your entire first crew goes to getting that fire knocked down 100%. If you do have a confirmed life hazard, that's when I may split my first crew up to get a search going simultaneously with stretching the first line.
Yeah, definitely split them. Absolutely. And it's 1-in-1, like you said. One guy searches, one guy is putting the fire out. You don't need 2 guys to run 1 3/4 inches to put water on that fire.
I couldn't agree more. And so I'll bring up, mentioning what size line I would bring. My feeling is this is still 1 3/4 inches. This is not enough fire for a 2.5. I think 1 3/4 inches puts out plenty of fire. I think that from the exterior, you'll be fine. But I think once you get inside with a 2.5, you're going to have a lot of problems maneuvering in that basement. I just think that a 2.5 is going to be tough, and not necessary, most importantly. I think, so I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Is anyone, I know one guy mentioned a 2.5. Is anyone else stretching a 2.5 for this?
It's a residential fire, 1 3/4 inches to start with. I mean, if it gets fully involved and gets up into everything, then to me, it goes defensive, and then you use 2.5.
Yeah. Anyone? I mean, it's
just
a thought.
maneuverability to the back of that house. 1 3/4 inches is going to be your best bet. I mean, and it's going to knock down the most amount of fire, so you could possibly look for trapped people.
Yeah. I just, and I know manpower can play a part. Someone mentioned that too. Adam. That's just my opinion. I'm not even considering a 2.5 here. It doesn't mean you're wrong if you take one. If you guys train on it and that's your SOG or the chief tells you to, that's fine. But 1 3/4 inches, smooth bore, that's what I'm taking here. So I don't want to beat that to death. If someone wants to chime in on it, I appreciate the feedback. But to me, this is 1 3/4 inches for me. So. Anyone else want to touch on anything with this? All right, so let's see what else we got. But I think that that's a good one, and to really mix in some of the different scenarios that you might run into. So, all right, so we'll go to 15. All right, so here we've got a condo. So this would be a 3-story condo complex, heavy fire from the attic area. That would be my first in. And then obviously there would be especially with, listen, I hate condos from a fire standpoint. They're almost all lightweight, lumber boxes, truss, no common layouts from, it's not like there's a ranch style or something. So each condo is unique, or each condo complex, I should say, is unique. Now, in this case, this is a 2-unit. So you got 1 entry here, 1 entry here. Normally, if they looked identical, you could use the adjoining one to try and get a layout of what the other one looked like. In this case, you can obviously see that they have a different layout to them. So that would not work. Now, that's more for the next scenario where you have a lower floor fire and you might have zero visibility. To me, again, you've got the entrance on the side, which is almost the first floor, and then you've got this basement here. But we'll get into that in the next scenario. You obviously have a common cock loft. You got heavy smoke from the gable vents. You got heavy fire from the front. limited access. Oops, sorry, cheating. Limited access to the rear. So there's really, to me, this is one of those where, again, we're going to get our guys in, no lines, do a search of the first 3 floors, pull out, and hit this from the exterior. With fire, that much fire on what I can almost guarantee you is truss construction, right up against it. And in an attic, it's probably not even finished truss construction, meaning there's no sheetrock or anything, any sort of fire protection on that. This is a loser. Even if you get this knocked down, that whole roof is coming off before you do. But life hazard being life hazard, I'm still putting guys in here immediately. Force entry, search of all 3 floors. Force entry, search of all 3 floors. Conditions on the first and second floor are probably going to be fairly favorable. 3rd floor, it's hard to tell. But again, I don't think that many are going to initially. So I'm going to split this up. Let's see. I'm going to find the other one. Sorry, I'm going to dance around here for a minute because I do want to find why size ups are so important, because this just kind of came to me. So that one, so 7. So we'll split. So 3-story condo complex. We're going to come back to this one, which we did not do today. And here we have a similar 3-story multifamily, top floor fire. Big difference. Ordinary construction here, even if the fire was in the cock loft, I'm getting lines up there, I'm pulling ceilings, and I'm knocking it down. Go here, lightweight construction, and a little bit different of a scenario here, okay? And so that's kind of my point why size ups. Lightweight. So, all right, I'm kind of dancing around here. I'm putting guys in, I'm pulling them out, I'm doing a search, and I'm putting heavy water into that top floor attic. What do you guys think? Anyone doing different?
Nothing different. As long as you know the life hazard in the 2nd and 3rd floor, the 1st and 2nd of living, as long as that's out, it's defensive all the way.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm putting guys up there to do searches. That's my first thing. Engine 1 unseen. I'm not even stretching a line with engine 1 unless the truck is right behind me and they can go do searches. If I'm engine 6 in Westport or Hawleyville pulling up with this with a few guys on a rig, engine 1 unseen, 3-story condo complex, heavy fire from the attic. And then I'm going to, maybe after I do a quick 360, engine 1 to command or engine 1 to dispatch, we're going to do a quick primary search, and then we're going to make this an exterior only fire. That's basically how this is going to go. Now, again, change this around to that other picture I showed you. If this is ordinary, if this is a flat roof, ordinary construction from the 20s, then I'm going to stretch inch and 3/4 up there, put a bunch of truck companies up there, start pulling ceilings, put a bunch of guys on the roof, start cutting the roof, and you can get this fire knocked down fairly, not fairly quickly, but fairly efficiently. Okay. But in this case, heavy fire right on trusses, not happening. If you don't have an aerial coming, make sure you've got 2 coming. If you've got 1 coming, make sure you got a second one coming. Put 1 here, and get a lot of water in there. But this is not one that I think that we're really going to be trying to extinguish and go home in an hour or 2. Okay. The good news is, looking at this, there's no exposures. So what you see is what you get. It's not an Avalon where, you got a block of buildings or anything. So yeah, manpower is obviously going to play a part. But again, even Ridgefield 8 guys on shift, by all means, you can take care of the life hazard of this with 8 guys. 2 guys into this side, 2 guys into this side, and the other 4 getting lines stretched. So there's really, Now we'll talk quickly about kind of the aerial master streams here. Obviously, a deck gun will reach up there. It won't have as much penetration. A blitz fire will reach up there, not as much penetration. We're going to want, tower ladder is going to be a little more advantageous for maneuvering, but if you have an aerial, that'll work as well. So what are some of the tactics to use those? Well, again, anytime you have them positioned down here, that the tips, just be mindful of collapse. Probably initially I would stick the nozzles into these gable vents and knock that fire back. The other option, however, is to take the top floor windows and shoot the master stream into these windows, aiming up, and knock that sheetrock out and almost do what you would do if you had 1 3/4 inch up there. And that would work extremely well. Also, again, just keep in mind that you're out of the collapse zone, because as you're blasting all this area, it is ripe to collapse. So just as a safety standpoint, just keep that in mind. Okay. All right. So this is the same condo complex. This is a different scenario. So you pull up here, and again, engine one on scene, 3-story condo complex, heavy fire from the garage on the first floor. Okay. Now we can get into, this is where we need to talk a little bit about floor designations, because from the front, this is obviously a 3-story. From the side, it's almost like a 2-story with a garage. And so it doesn't really matter what you call it. I don't care if you call it 2-story with a walkout garage and with a walkout basement in the front, or a 3-story. Just make sure everybody on scene is on the same page. Okay. I'll go into a rant. When you see something on the internet and they said, oh, we had a 2-story with a garage. I'm sorry. When someone might say that, when people get in arguments about how you designated the floors, my question is, well, did everyone on scene know what you meant? And they say yes. Then I don't care. We can be wrong as long as everyone on scene is wrong. Okay. Meaning, if half of us on scene are calling this 2-story with a walkout basement in the front, and half of us on scene are calling this a 3-story, that's a problem. If everyone on scene is calling this a 3-story, then I don't care if the internet wizards think that this is a 2-story with a walkout basement. Okay. So just make sure everyone on scene is on the same page. Okay. That's essential. That really falls onto the incident commander. Okay. For today, I think this is a 3-story condo. So when I talk about it, I'm just going to be using this as the second floor. This is the third floor. So entrance is actually kind of on the second floor, almost like a split level where you could go up half a flight or down half a flight. Regardless, life hazard here is going to be a lot different than the one before, meaning that searches on these, the likelihood of people being unconscious in this building when we do our search is low. More than likely, if it's a condo complex and it has old people, they'll just need to, be helped to move out, but they won't be actually unconscious or anything like that. And our searching is going to be, we're probably not even going to be on air. Whereas in this case, I'm expecting a fairly heavy smoke condition on these upper floors. And so the life hazard of someone up there may be, significantly worse. So going into it again, though, what are some thoughts of initial tactics?
Well, I'm thinking my first line is with a smooth bore, is gonna knock that fire down in the garage if you got that much fire blowing out now. And the second line is going right up into the, through the door to get up to the front, get up to the next floor and cover the door up there that goes down to that basement. Yeah. But
yeah, I
get somebody to start searching.
No, I think you're
fire up there. You need to start searching that.
Again, if you don't get this fire knocked down, this is ripe for auto exposure to those top floor windows and then coming in on you up there. Also, we know that, again, lightweight is not just on the roof. So, the garage hopefully has some level of fire protection, but chances are the first floor, basement ceiling, same thing, is probably some sort of lightweight construction and ripe for, early collapse as well. Now, this is where and I realize in this picture they're not, but if this condo looked like a mirror of this one, I would probably try to get into this side, run up 3 floors, see what it looks like to get a general basic layout of what this side is as well. Okay. That works extremely well. works very well in high-rise, apartment buildings where the floor below is identical to the floor above. So just keep that in mind. The other thing is that in a condo complex, especially, you got to assume that there are bedrooms on all 3 floors. And so even this garage, a lot of people convert this over to a bedroom, or the room right behind it might get converted into a bedroom. And so where on a colonial, most of the bedrooms are usually on the 2nd floor. Cape could be either. In a ranch, it's not on a different floor, but we know this side's going to be bedrooms. This side's going to be living room, dining room. In this case, you really got to assume bedrooms could be on all 3 floors. And so that's something to be very mindful of. But I think I agree with you. I think that you have to get water onto this fire. It doesn't necessarily need to be a line. It could even be if the engine pulls a little bit past it. It could even be the deck gun on here while you're stretching 1 3/4 inch into this front door. But I agree that the first water has to go into that fire, but the first line that gets stretched into the building has to go into this 2nd floor, this front door here. That's kind of where I go with it. The first water has to go in the fire, but the first line that actually enters the building should probably come into the 2nd floor front door here. That's kind of where I'm going with that. Anyone that searches this 2nd floor or 3rd floor, again, this is a lumber yard. I really don't want to send them up there without having a line into this front door first. That really, not a huge fan. I would rather, if I needed someone to search a 2nd floor window here, I would rather have them VES off of a portable ladder than have them go into this front door, find the stairs, and go up there if there was no line into this front door here. And I know a lot of people get nervous about VES, but just remember, VES is basically making this, let's say we're VESing this window, this becomes your new front door. You know how to get back to there. You've got a ladder there. You're breaking down your quote unquote house into a 12 by 12 foot room. I think it works extremely well, and you don't have the issue of having to try to find the stairs. Now, I'm not saying if this is your fire that you're going to VES the top floor. What I'm saying is if you pulled up to this and someone said my kid is in the bedroom in the rear, that's when I'm maybe taking a ladder to VES that window. I know where I'm going. I know what bedroom I need to do. And if we only have 4 guys, I can have 1 or 2 guys knock that fire down while the other 2 go get this window VES'd. So that's my kind of thought on this fire. I don't know anyone else wants to chime in or how they feel on that. But overall with VES, I guess what I want to say is that for the unless VES is your everyday thing, I generally would not VES unless I had a known life hazard in a specific location. The whole idea of VES, of throwing a ladder here, going in, VESing that window, coming down, moving the ladder here, going in, that takes a long time. But I think if you have reports of someone trapped in an upper floor room in a specific location, then I think VES is probably quicker than going into the front door, trying to find the stairs, getting up to the stairs, zero visibility, trying to find the specific room that they were talking about, searching it, and so on and so forth. So that's my feeling on that. I don't know, so that's the condos. And again, these are tinder boxes. I've never seen a condo fire that had this much fire that was a save. So I don't know if you guys have seen differently, but this is certainly a goner. And this, honestly, is probably a goner too. Hopefully we just get the fire knocked down enough to be able to get searches done and then keep our guys safe. So, all right, let's see what else we have here. Condo, first floor. All right, we'll do this one. Slide 17. 16. All right. So same house, different scenario. My first in, 2-story colonial, heavy smoke from the front door. Appears we have smoke from the rear as well. Okay. Um, anyone else? This is one where I probably would not mention, the fact that there's a garage on the B side isn't really important in this scenario. Whereas in the last one, I mentioned that, we had a garage on the B side, again, because that's where the fire actually was. But in this case, to me, that's not an initial first in report. But if you say it, you're not wrong. Again, I'm just going down and dirty for the first in. This is obviously one where if you don't do a 360, again, you're going to miss something. So doing a 360 again, now because the garage door is open, I know that the garage is clear. Walk around to the rear, and now I can get a much better idea of what's going on. Okay, so front to the rear. Okay, so now we'll talk. What do we think we have going on? What do we think is burning? Location most likely? Probably a kitchen. So probably a good kitchen fire that's starting to extend into the rest of the first floor. If I had to guess, this is the door to this room on the second floor was left open, whereas the door to these rooms on the second floor are closed. And, so that might be a quick thing you pick up if you miss that. I don't think it's the end of the world, but just kind of showing a couple different things in there. And then on the D side, again, some more smoke here. But obviously, I think we can see that the concentration is going to be right here. I am, however, going to be concerned again with how much fire is coming out of there, about auto exposure into both the second floor, if there's a window there, and into the soffits, into the attic, where you can see you already have some good smoke showing up there. So with that, I'll leave it on the split screen so you can see all four. Anyone want to comment on anything else that they see before I kind of get into tactics here? All right. So again, to me, this is a fairly straightforward, even if I had 3 guys, 1 3/4 into the front door, straight through the rear and knock this fire out the back. I know some guys are probably going to want to stretch a line around the rear and hit this from the exterior. I don't think that is necessary. I don't think it's a heavy body of fire based on what I see. I think it's something that it's a good amount of fire, but I don't think it's going to overwhelm you in any way, shape, or form. I think that a line stretch to the rear will knock down some of the auto exposure. I don't think that it will get all of the fire that's extending throughout the first floor that you will get from coming into the front door here. And really, this is a 2-3 line fire. If this is into the attic, and there is some evidence that it is, it's hard to tell, if it's completely burning up there yet, or if it's just a good smoke condition. But if this is up into the attic, then this is at least a 3-line fire. And so you have to prepare, maybe not as engine 1 boss, but as the first due chief, you really have to prepare for this to be at least a 3-line fire, a line on the first floor here, a line on the second floor here, a line into the attic there. Okay. Because you're probably going to get at least some level of auto exposure extension onto the second floor. And again, with the amount of smoke coming out of the attic, you're probably going to get, it appears you at least have some sort of extension into the attic as well. And so to think that one line coming around to the rear is going to take care of all 3 of those, it's not going to happen. Beyond that, again, let's look at it from a life safety standpoint. If this smoke is coming out this turbulently out the front door, and you do have fire starting to take over the first floor, then even an exterior line, one of the main purposes of this first line is going to be to protect those stairs. because, and not just protect those stairs from, again, civilians that are trying to get out and for us doing searches, but also to protect our guys that are going to stretch that second line up there, because we don't want to stretch a line past fire. So this almost becomes, if you stretch that first line to the exterior, you're almost going to have to stretch 4 lines, because you're going to stretch a line to the rear, knock that fire down. Your second line is going to come in here to the first floor. Your third line is going to come in here to the second floor, and your fourth line is going to come in here to the attic. And so you're almost going to need more manpower if your first, in my opinion, if your first line goes to the rear. That's, again, not to say if you show up with 2 guys on the rig and no help coming for a while. If I show up with 2 guys on the rig and no help coming for a while, then yeah, my first line is probably going to end up having to go to the rear to at least do as much as I can. But even if I have 3 guys, 4 guys, I think that first line's going into the front door and to knock this fire out and out the back. In terms of life hazard, again, hopefully someone meets you here, daytime kitchen fire. Hopefully someone meets you here saying everyone's out of the house. And I will say something about this. With the grand internet that we live in here, when people say never trust anybody, never trust anybody. Let's be real. In a Newtown or a Ridgefield or a Westport, if someone comes out, and I'm just using departments of people that I know on here or that are commenting, if someone comes out to you and says, in a single family colonial like this, and someone comes out to you, says everyone's out of the house, that's a lot different to me than in a Norwalk or in a Stanford or in a New York City in an apartment building where someone comes out to me and says everyone's out, or my neighbors aren't there or something like that. Okay, I believe that we can take a mother's report in a single private dwelling in a rural area or suburban area much more than we can in a multiple dwelling or in a urban area where people come and go a lot more. That's my feeling. That doesn't mean, however, that we're not going to do a primary search here. It just means that I'm willing to take that life hazard assessment of people being in there and move it down a little bit on the scale, meaning I may put 2 lines into this building before I start a primary search. Whereas if I was at work, I would probably put my first crew to put a line into the first floor, and then my second crew maybe start a search instead of stretching the second line, and then my third crew stretches the second line. That's my feeling. You guys are free to disagree with me on that, but I just think that there is credence to a mother, a father, a teenager saying everyone's out of the house versus, a neighbor saying in a multiple dwelling, in a, say, a two family private dwelling, no, the other family's not there. There's a difference to me. Okay. So that's my feeling in terms of life hazard assessment on that.
Hey, Dan, let me
Yeah.
just say, so if you got 2 guys on the hose line, I agree. I'd bring the first line through the front door and try to knock that down if you got 2 guys. But one guy's putting fire out. There's nothing saying the other guy can't search off the hose line, at least the first floor that he's in with the other guy.
Yeah.
And they get rid of 2 things at one time. I wouldn't go up to the second floor, but he could certainly search off that line.
That's absolutely a great point. What I'll say with that is it depends on your 2 guys. If I'm an officer or an experienced guy and I've got a guy fresh out of fire 1 with me, I'll probably stay with him the whole time. But if it's me and you in there, yeah, by all means, Jeff, stay here. I'm gonna go do a search. Or Jeff, I got the line. Go do a search. Yeah, absolutely. That would work out extremely well. And that's same thing in a career department. I'm right now. I have a probie riding with me. I'm probably not sending him to do many things by himself. We even the other day had a food on the stove and I sent him to floors 5 through 10 to check by himself. And after I did it, I was like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Not that there was any smoke even, but just he doesn't know what to look for yet. So I think that adds a level of complexity if you're going to split up, knowing who you got with you, who you can trust, and just who has the experience and whatnot. But yeah, absolutely. You got 2 guys with good experience in here. go in there, knock the fire down. Hey, go do a quick primary search of this first floor. Absolutely. And again, even on the second floor, if we did have a life hazard on the second floor and we were sending guys up there, what, just looking at this size up scenario, if there's a window up here, so a room of some sort, and we were worried about auto exposure up there, just think of it from a reverse VES perspective. As soon as I get up to that second floor, get that door closed, and that's going to buy us a good amount of time on that second floor. Even if there's fire in that attic, again, this probably isn't truss construction. We're going to have a lot of structural stability time on that second floor to be able to do a primary search, even if we don't have a line with us. So even if I had confirmed entrapment, first engine's coming down, knock this fire through that front door, second rig's going up to the second floor to do a search. If they were very, 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 very delayed, I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know what the right answer is. If you showed up with 2-3 guys, confirmed entrapment on the second floor, that's a tough one. But just realize you can buy yourself a decent amount of time on that second floor just by getting to the top of those stairs and shutting that door. This is just smoke. So, again, smoke is not fire. Again, that's why I'm saying this. I'm not guaranteeing that this is fire extension into the attic. It appears to be through the soffits, but smoke is not fire. So don't get wrapped up into that. But, that's my feeling on this. Obviously, the other main factor with a kitchen fire is generally kitchens don't have any way to confine it. Bedroom fire, you golden up there. If it's just the bedroom, you can close that door and buy yourself time on that second floor. There's really no way to confine a kitchen fire without water. You're not shutting a door and now the kitchen can freely burn and you can search. So we got to get water on that fire one way or another. And, also don't discount being able to put a good knock on this from the interior and then kind of reaching out of the first floor and sweeping the exterior of the house as well. That as long as you can get close enough there, that's certainly something that you may be able to accomplish as well. So anyone else want to hit any comments on this one from anyone? All right. 19. I'm keeping an eye on the comments as well. So if anyone wants to comment on there, you're more than welcome to. All right, so we looked at this house before, a little bit different. Again, I would call it a one-story ranch with a two-story addition on the D side. Appears we have heavy fire in the rear, okay? You could say heavy fire in the rear. I got no problem with that. We're going to get around and realize it's mostly construction equipment. Indications that it may not be in the building. And listen, this is easy for me to say in front of a computer screen. I would probably not pick up on these indications pulling up at this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a fire truck. But the fact that there's zero smoke coming from anywhere in this building on the front side would probably indicate that the fire is all on the exterior. That doesn't mean that we don't have a major issue. All this burning, we know we have a combustible exterior, but there's no reason to initially go into the front. All right. Probably, your line's going around to the rear. You're going to go in, do your searches, and whatnot. Okay. I'll be back. I'll be out in a little bit. All right. Oh, okay. Well, I'm doing this right now. Sorry, guys. So fire in the rear and, get this construction equipment knocked down and check for extension. But the idea is showing this looks fairly similar in the rear, but now we're getting some good smoke in the front. And so that should be a major indication, obviously, that we do have a structural fire and not a rear shed fire. But again, same thing, one-story ranch, addition, heavy fire in the rear. Again, not propane, not initially a concern for me as the first due engine officer. Fire blowing out of here, okay, that becomes a little bit more of a concern. So now we got fire blowing out of the walkout basement. And again, this is where, as doing my 360, you need to radio back and report a walkout basement. Okay, that changes everything, because access to a basement through a Belco door versus a walkout basement, completely different. So we need to get back and say, whether it be on the fire ground frequency, be advised we have a walkout basement. Engine 1 to dispatch, advise all incoming units, heavy fire in the basement, we have a walkout basement, whatever the case may be, that needs to be reported back. Okay. I'm going with the same tactics with this as I am with the last one. My first line is probably going to go around to the rear. I know I have good access into the basement. I can get this knocked down. I can knock down any auto exposure. I can enter and extinguish this fire. But very rapidly after that, with this kind of smoke, I got to get a line into that first floor and take care of any extension coming up. Anyone feel differently? Is anyone stretching their first line into the first floor?
The only thing I have to say is that's why the 360 is super important, because some guys might just go right to the front door. Mm-hmm. And without that 360, you wouldn't have known that you need to go in that you have that walkout.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And again, my problem with stretching to the front is not the heat, the fire, pushing downstairs. My guys are going to do that. My problem with stretching to the first floor for a very well-involved basement fire is finding those stairs. And I know we can sit here all day and say, well, this is a ranch, and therefore the stairs are going to be here. This is a cape, and therefore the stairs are going to be directly underneath the stairs to the second floor. Or this is this building, and this is where these stairs are going to be. When the lights go out, all bets are off, meaning when it's zero visibility and high heat, finding the stairs is a whole different ballgame. And if you start, getting wrapped around here on the first floor, unable to find the stairs, things are going to get really bad really quick. And so that's my feeling with why we may want to send that first line around the rear and around the rear and into the known area. Okay. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to rapidly get a second line into this first floor after, because based on this smoke, it looks like we do probably have, even if it's very minor extension, some sort of extension to the first floor, or the stairs to the basement was left open. That could be as well. So things to keep in mind there that we want to make sure that we're protecting against. Okay. But yeah, definitely the idea of this scenario is a 360. That's got to be the major point that you take out of this. Not just because of the walkout basement, but also because of even knowing that we have a basement fire versus, this could be heavy fire out of the first floor as well, venting over the building. So a lot of things play a part into doing a proper 360. All right. We'll do one more, and then we will go on with our Easter Sunday. If anyone has to get off early, just do me a favor. And I'm putting in the chat now a link to the survey. Just do me a favor and do that if you got to leave. We're going to do one more. Let's see which one. All right, this is a good one to finish up on. All right, so you pull up to this, again, two-story colonial, heavy fire, basement on the B side, okay? The other way you might pull up to this one would be this. You might miss that smoke, and that's okay. I don't know that I would necessarily always see that, and that's why, again, the 360 is going to be essential to be able to see that, because obviously you can't miss that on a 360. I would argue you absolutely could miss this, and especially at 3 in the morning, you might miss that as well, okay? So 2-story colonial, heavy smoke from the B side. You may not pick that up as basement, but again, once you get over there, you absolutely do. Okay. Again, I'm not necessarily saying that we got into a debate the other night about this. This is obviously colonial. This is obviously an addition, or appears to be an addition, with a garage and a great room, bonus room, whatever you want to call it up there. Maybe a master bedroom. I'm probably not saying that on my first in unless that's involved in fire. That might be a size up point. But again, the first in, to me, down and dirty. If you say it, you're not obviously not wrong, but you can only say so much in a first in. So, colonial, smoke on the B side. Maybe if I had fire over here, colonial with an attached garage on the D side, smoke showing. But again, keep it simple, stupid. So we know we have a basement fire. In our walk around, we really don't have anything showing other than that one basement window there. So again, we're getting kind of everything down and dirty today, but the first thing for a basement fire for me, like we said before, access. And so in this case, we do not have a walkout basement. Obviously, we know we're going to have access on the interior, and we see a Bilco door right here. So this Bilco doors to me make things a little more interesting. Bilco doors are not meant to be used daily, and therefore various levels of fortification in there, or not even fortification, but just various levels of rust and seized and not easy to get open. So to me, you basically have 3 options here. Your first is line through the front door, find the stairs down to the basement. This is one of those. It should be fairly straightforward to find the stairs. The stairs will be right. The stairs to the second floor should be right in front of you, and then either do a right hand or a left hand search around those, and you should find generally an outward opening door into the basement stairs, because the stairs are going to run right, on top of each other. So that shouldn't be too hard to find. And then, so that's one option, down the stairs, fight the fire. Second option, around the rear, get to the Bilco door. Around the rear, get to the Bilco door and force that down and into the basement. And last would be a line straight to the basement window and put water into the fire that way. Generally, that would not be a consideration for me. Once you get into a non-walkout basement, I think that because to me, a walkout basement, if you come around the rear, it's almost the first floor. And so 99% of the time, we're going to go into that, front door and attack the fire. So why wouldn't we do that if we have a walkout basement? In this case, things get a little bit different. So to me, those are 3 viable options. And we went through all 3 the other night, and all 3 are viable. I think that in the grand scheme of things easy to talk about, but hard to do, getting into the Bilco door is one of those, meaning, guys just saying, I would just go into the Bilco door and force entry into that and get in. I think that's a little easier said than done. I think a lot of people have them locked, another deadbolt at the bottom. So I don't always know that that's easy to do. On the things we also talked about the other night, a 2.5, easy to talk about, not always easy to do. A trench cut, easy to talk about, not easy to do. And so, saying just bring my first line to the Bilco door, I don't know. This is one where I would probably go into the front door, down the stairs, and attack the fire, rapidly having a second line going to the basement window here to operate if I needed to in an emergency, and getting a truck crew to open up and force entry into that Bilco door as soon as possible. That's kind of my feeling on that. Again, going down a Bilco stairs is very similar to going down an interior basement stairs. The only difference is where the stairs start, but you're still going to get a good amount of smoke and heat, especially once you pop that door down there, and you still have to find where the fire is. So I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts? You can comment in the chat if you want, but I don't have a set, this is what I would do. Yeah, Jerry made a very good point. as I'm doing my 360, pull that Bilco door, see if it's unlocked. I actually think that's something I didn't mention. That is a huge point. So if you pull that open and it's open, then that might change your tactics. Assuming it's locked for this sake of discussion, I think my first line is going into the first floor because, again, I have the benefit of protecting the stairs. If the doorway to the if the doorway from the basement to the first floor is open, I'm knocking back any fire that's coming up the stairs, and then I can make the push down into the basement. And then if I get bogged down, that second line coming out to the side here can always knock down the fire from the exterior. Or if we get entry into the Bilco door, second or third line can go into that Bilco door and knock the fire down. This is not an easy fire. And it's going, and again, just because we have fire venting from the window there doesn't mean that that's the only fire in the basement. That just may be the first place that it's showing. And so don't think that this is like a bedroom, a little 8x10 room down there. And so if we put water into the fire there, then all of our fire disappears. So, again, a lot of cars here doesn't mean we have entrapment, but anything to keep the fire out of the first floor and second floor, I think is something we have to consider so that we can get searches done above. But yeah, that's my thought on that one. But again, Bilco doors, if they're unlocked, great. If they're not, we have ways to cut them. Obviously, if you've taken one of our forcible entry classes, we address it. But again, that door at the bottom of the stairs, that door at the bottom of the stairs, forcing that is going to be very similar to doing, forcing on a floor above the fire where you're probably going to be on air. You're probably going to have a decent smoke condition coming out through that door. You may even have some heat. And so don't think you're just going to walk down there and pop that door open quick a lot of the time. Yeah, you're still going to check it. So it may be unlocked, but don't think that that's a gimme force down there. That's something that we kind of get into our advanced classes with the stairs up against the door, either at the top of the stairs or the bottom of the stairs. That's what that's going to be like. That's not an easy force if it's locked. So whereas the walkout basement's kind of a gimme, don't think that this is any sort of a gimme. All right. That's pretty much what I got. Anyone else have any questions on that one? And again, any sort of colonial like this with confirmed entrapment into a specific area, VES is going to be an excellent option. And so what I mean is if we're just going to do a search of the second floor, no, I'm going to go in the front door up the stairs and go do my search. But if I have a report of someone in this bedroom here or in this bedroom here, and the first floor and second floor is pretty shitty condition, VES is probably going to be our best access up to them. Okay. I realize VES is not something, VES may not be something that is seen often, like on a daily basis, but if you're going to do it, for a specific location, I think it works well. So anyway, I think I'm going to close it up at that unless anyone has any other questions. I see a couple in the chats. I'll get back to you in a minute. This is recording, assuming I did it correctly. So I will make it available to everyone that's on here. My policy with recording generally is I don't post it on the internet for anybody because I want to encourage participation. But what I will do is send an email out with an access to it for everyone that was on the call, whether you had to leave early or something like that. And again, I just ask that you don't share it with everybody out there, not from any sort of standpoint of I don't care. I just don't, for people that participated, I don't think it's fair too. So that's it. Anyone else have anything else? Right.
Nope. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. Happy Easter. Those guys working, stay safe, and keep an eye on us for more classes in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.